What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Now you may recognize that as from Romeo and Juliet, some of Shakespeare's best known words, but it brings an interesting question. What's in a name? If you think about it, names and words in general are important. They are how we communicate thoughts and ideas to others. Now you can change how someone reacts to something by changing its name. So if we don't call them laws but something else, does that mean we can get around the Constitution? We'll discuss this next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. I'm glad you could join me today. As always, head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. That's where you'll find everything that we're doing. I'm trying to make some new changes, so you might see some things popping up that you might find interesting. Might be worth keeping an eye on the website. In fact, it might be worth signing up for the mailing list, which you can also do at the website. And from that, you'll be updated as I release new things and try new things. There's some interesting things going on. The book is going well. I just had a very good expo down in Atlanta. I want to thank everybody that stopped by the booth while I was in Atlanta. Everybody I got to follow up with. I especially want to thank Rebecca and Dennis for volunteering and helping me man the booth. I think we had a great time and I think we truly enjoyed it. If you would like me to come speak at one of your events, head over to the website. Up in the top menu, you'll see in my event, you'll see request a speaker. Let me know the wheres and the whens. We'll see what we can work out. There's some really interesting things I have in the works coming up soon. One of the things is I'm trying to figure out a way so that people can bring me in, people can learn about the Constitution and how important it is to study it and how they can study it for themselves and not be put off by expenses of having me travel. So keep an eye out with what's going on. I'll hopefully be making a few announcements soon. So let's get into today's message, a law by any other name. You see, I titled this a law by any other name because we like to put names on things. And sometimes we like to change the names to hide what they are. Now, the Constitution starts out in Article 1, Section 1, Clause 1, with all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. You see, the very first words of legal authority in the Constitution state that all legislative powers, all lawmaking powers are granted to Congress. Now, the preamble itself is just that. It's a preliminary description of what the document will do. So what are these legislative powers that are granted to Congress? Well, giving or enacting laws on as a legislative body and the capability of enacting laws as a legislative body. So all power to enact laws are vested in Congress. Not some legislative power, not most legislative power. All legislative power granted by the Constitution is vested in Congress. So why is this important? Because for decades, Congress has been delegating its power to create laws to the executive branch in the form of regulations and rulemaking. So to understand this, we need to define a law. Well, Webster defines it as a rule, particularly an established or permanent rule, prescribed by the supreme power of a state to its subjects for regulating their actions, particularly their social actions. You see, they call it rulemaking or passing regulations. But a law by any other name is just as binding, and the power to create them belongs only with the legislative branch. Now, those who support Congress delegating rulemaking to the executive branch point to the 1928 Supreme Court case J.W. Hampton Jr. versus United States. Quote, in a unanimous decision, the court held that Congress, within defined limits, could vest discretion in executive officers to make public regulations and direct the details of statutory execution. The court argued that the same principle that allowed Congress to fix rates in interstate commerce also enabled it to remit to a rate-making body under the control of the executive branch. Now, after reading the opinion, I found two relevant points. First, the court contradicted itself when it said this, quote, held that the delegation of power is not unconstitutional. Clearly, the published opinion of the court is that the delegation of power is not unconstitutional. Yet, reading the opinion, I found this, quote, The true distinction, therefore, is between the delegation of power to make the law, which necessarily involves a discretion as to what it shall be, and conferring an authority or discretion as to its execution, to be exercised under and in pursuance of the law. The first cannot be done. To the latter, no valid objection can be made. So, after holding that the Constitution allows the delegation of power, the court then says that the delegation of power as opposed to discretion within the law cannot be done. Quote, the Congress may not delegate its purely legislative power to a commission, but having laid down the general rules of action under which a commission shall proceed, it may require of that commission the application of such rules to particular situations and the investigation of facts with a view to making orders in a particular matter within the rules laid down by Congress. All right, so that's number one. Second, as usual, it appears the devil really is in the details. See, the court agrees that Congress cannot delegate its legislative power, but once they set the general rules, the commission or agency can apply those rules. So in the case of Hampton versus United States, the question was, could Congress allow an executive agency to vary taxes within the scope they had defined? How much discretion can Congress allow? According to a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation initiative, quote, changes in the healthcare financing and organization, a representative list of the Secretary shall requirements includes that the Secretary shall promulgate regulations defining the young adults who can now remain under their parents' insurance policies, develop standards for use by insurers in compiling and providing information for enrollees that accurately describe benefits and coverage, develop reporting requirements in consultation with quality experts for use by insurers with respect to benefits and provide reimbursement structures that improve health outcomes, prevent readmissions, improve patient safety, and implement wellness and health promotion activities. Collect and make publicly available reports of insurers' minimum loss ratios and adjust the ratios to avoid destabilization of the individual insurance market. Establish a process for an annual review of unreasonable increases of premiums for health insurance coverage, and establish in consultation with the states a mechanism, including a website, through which individuals may identify affordable health insurance options within their state, and develop a standardized format for the presentation of coverage option information to individuals. These are not working out the details within the general rules established by Congress. Neither are they asking an agency to work within prescribed boundaries. This is Congress tossing their lawmaking authority over to an executive agency. They are asking the agency to promulgate regulations, develop standards, and establish processes, all with the force of law. And this is just one law. What about the thousands of other laws Congress has enacted, asking the EPA, DOE, and the rest of the three-letter agencies to come up with regulations they couldn't be bothered with writing themselves? Why is this such a big deal? Because we vested lawmaking power in two groups of representatives. One of the people, the House of Representatives, and the other of the states, the Senate, both of which are elected by the people of the United States of America. Bureaucrats and executive agencies don't face the voting public. They are not held directly accountable to the true sovereigns of this nation. Their roles are not even recorded and made public. In short, this is a form of legislation without representation. Now, there is a logic to allowing an executive agency some discretion within the guidelines established by Congress. But like so much in government today, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. If Congress enacted good legislation, i.e. not only constitutional, but worded with proper details and establishing clear limits within which the executive branch can work, this would not be a problem. Whether through their own short-sightedness or just a desire to avoid responsibility, Congress is abdicating their lawmaking responsibility, and we should hold them accountable for not doing their jobs. So what do you think? Do you know of other examples where Congress has simply kicked the ball over the executive branch? And isn't it interesting that this group of people who represent us are more than happy to take credit for doing something and then blame the other guy for doing what they told him to do? Perfect example. I got asked a question this week about Trump's emergency declaration and redirecting of funds, saying you can't redirect funds that Congress has allocated, except Congress appropriated the funds and in that language gave the president authority to redirect them in an emergency. Do you have other examples of where people have, or Congress has abdicated their responsibility, or where the executive branch has now been given powers that are legislative? See, it's important to recognize why our founding fathers broke up these responsibilities the way they did, and why the writing of laws is handled by the people who represent the people and the states, not the bureaucrats. So I hope you enjoyed this message. Hey, stop on by the website, constitutionstudy.com. Check out some of the other videos. Most of all, ask me questions. Tell me what you think, but also what are you thinking about that you'd either like me to do an episode on, or just have a question you'd like answered. I love answering the questions. Oh, as always, if you see me at an event, head on over, stop by, shake my hand. I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to talk to you. And I hope to see you again the next time on the Constitution Study. Have a great day.